welcome everybody to Conversations with 1 Million Meditators. I'm really excited today. We have a super special guest joining us all the way from Australia. Damien, welcome. Welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. And Bella.
That was Bella. Bella the blue torpedo.
She's just joining in our group, hey?
She is. Well, it's warmed by the fire just here, so.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Guys, I'm just going to introduce Damien here. The modern era of music has given way to enigmas and artists of all shapes and forms who break the norm of what we have come to expect as far as what an artist truly is. Damien Horton is one such artist that epitomizes the essence of the modern era. A multi-talented author, motivational speaker, singer, songwriter, and guitarist from South Australia, Damien creates music that is both vulnerable and powerful, driven by a desire to help others reconnect with their emotions and heal. I'm so grateful to have you here today. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm pumped. I'm super pumped.
I know, me too. Like, we've connected a couple times kind of leading up to this, and I've heard about your story, and I can't wait to dive into it. But before we, I don't know, should we talk? Should we play music? Should we have some fun with this?
Yeah, it's up to you. Maybe let's just do a song to get things started.
That's what I was feeling. Yeah, I know. I would love it. I think it'd be so cool. So everybody in the comments below, post where you're from. This is going to be awesome.
That's open highway.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody post in the comments below, those joining on, tell us where you are joining from. Okay, I know I kind of like rushed you right into that because I get so excited, and it was so awesome when we connected, and I like got to just find out all about your story and everything you've been into. So amazing, so amazing. I can't wait to dive into it.
I love the synchronicity though of how we connected.
I know, right? Absolutely, yeah. It was crazy. It was so crazy, like the timing and everything, but that's how things roll, you know?
It is how things roll, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So, you know, before we totally like, I don't know, dive into everything, I want to ask you, of course, because we are here on 1 Million Meditators, how did meditation come into your life?
Oh, okay. So actually, for the first time, I had a friend when I was a kid, and his mum was actually, she got quite ill. And so she was doing like into Buddhism and learning meditation and everything. So we were just bratty little kids, listening to Guns N' Roses and jumping around the backyard with sticks and, you know, doing what the kids do. And she asked if we'd like to learn how to meditate. So I think I lasted about 3 or 4 minutes, bailed on it, and then meditation didn't come back into my life until August 12. And August 12, 2007 was sort of like the day my life actually began in many ways. So that was my near-death experience. So for those who don't know me, I had like a 10-year battle with severe depression, clinical severe depression, self-hate, anxiety, addiction problems, and a dark place, right? A nasty, nasty place. And then this moment in time where I made a really bad decision and had a severe car accident. So critical head injuries and shattered my spine, broke my back in 6 places, and was in a coma. So they had to fully rebuild my head. My face has got 44 pieces of titanium in it now. And after, marathon surgery, blah, 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 they put me all back together. And I guess I came out of this coma with like a clean slate in many ways. Like I just realized I couldn't blame myself for decisions I'd made in the past. That wasn't going to get me anywhere. And although the prognosis was as bleak as you can imagine, like in that coma, they were talking about me being in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, being blind, and being permanently brain damaged, like severe permanent brain damage because of the injuries. I had critical head injuries, frontal lobe and temporal lobe, and then hemorrhaging through my entire brain globally as well. So I realized that I had to come back to love. As cliche as that's going to sound for you, it's just like simple logic. I'm in intensive care. I'm 42 kilos. Mum and my brother have left. They've gone home and I'm alone. I'm scared and I'm in extreme pain. And I let myself grieve, to be honest with you. I connected with my heart, had a big cry, and came back to love and set my intention that I was going to walk out of that place within a week, basically. And then 10 days later I did. And then as I started this journey of like the old me's gone now. So like this is the death of the old me. I'm going to change myself in every way possible. A friend said, how about we go and learn meditation? And one of the doctors at the Brain Rehabilitation Center said to me that it would be so beneficial for you to get back into your music straight away, and also to learn meditation, because it allows time for the brain often goes into sensory input overload after a brain injury. And if you picture like being in a shower, right, and there's fog everywhere and you can't see, and you've been studying for exams and you've been awake for 4 days, so you can't think, you can't see properly. Picture that and times it by like 100. That's what critical head injuries feels like. It's really confusing. And my memory was just atrocious. And I couldn't articulate myself. I couldn't speak to another person without stopping and trying to find the words and like remember like, what's that word that means this? And So we went down to learn to meditate, and we learned Vedic meditation, and I got my mantra, and that was the moment in time that changed my world, changed my life, and I cured depression and healed myself from critical head injuries. And I would attribute more than 50% of that to meditation. So yeah, that's a long story, but that's it. Yeah.
Wow, that's just absolutely amazing. It's incredible. You know, a few of our conversations we had, you mentioned mind over matter, and that truly is the power of mind over matter. My gosh, like that's just absolutely incredible story. And yeah, the power of meditation, you know, prayer and those things just can be so powerful in how they ripple out. So thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and even the medical establishment have said to me, like the best of the best, the doctors and the nurses in the recovery ward said that there's this extra element that Western allopathic medicine can't explain, and from their professional opinion, it's the human spirit, is willpower. And people with injuries 1,000,000 times less severe than mine often never recover, never go back to work, you know, never do any of that sort of stuff, and they're on pain medication or, you know, have psychological issues for the rest of their life. So I started this journey of like, okay, there's a higher truth than what I always placed in, you know, the paradigms that we have here in the West, you know, that like doctors are like God and all of that sort of stuff. I had to shift my mindset about that, and it started what's now is a over 13-year journey of research into consciousness and spirituality and mind over matter and neuroscience and biology, so epigenetics, and understanding how we switch genes on and how we can turn genes off, and the power of meditation and what mind over matter actually is, understanding the placebo effect. And so, yeah, it's over 13 years later, and that's what I've dedicated my life to now. It's just helping people, making music and writing books, and with my YouTube channel, and just coaching and helping people through stuff.
Wow. That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I know you've worked with some really, really incredible people that, like, I mean, I've followed for years. And when you were talking about synchronicity, I think the cool thing that you pulled from this and what you're doing with this is kind of like what the doctor said, get back into music, get back into something that you love. And I don't know, I think there's something special about sound and vibration when you combine it with the power of, you know, the mind as well, that creates a pretty remarkable ripple.
I couldn't agree more. Yep. I mean, everything is frequency, as Nikola Tesla said. If you want to understand this universe, you have to think energy, because everything's made up of atoms, and we think they're like little marbles, but they're not. It's 99.99999% nothing physical, no physicality at all. It's frequency, or like actually vortices of energy that make up this entire universe. So we're 0.000001% solid stuff. And so when we're a materialist, when we become materialists, and I was the biggest culprit of this. We look in the mirror and we think that that's us, that's who we are. We're the image staring back at us, we're the job title, we're the, you know, all the stuff that the ego loves to attach to. But the truth is, there's a far higher truth out there. And this is coming from someone who was an atheist and believed in nothing for his entire life, basically. But that near-death experience is like 4K compared to standard definition. Like the things that you see on the television are the things that authority figures have told me. It's like old standard def on VHS tapes compared to 4K, because when you have the experience yourself, and for me, I experienced the true self, I experienced consciousness beyond this world in that coma, and I haven't moved for 13 years. It's just knowing, and once you have that, you can never back away from it, because it's a higher truth. Yeah. And so also, I think you put a link in the description there that anyone watching the show gets my ebook as well, so that you can check out my story if they want to.
Yes, and we will drop the link for Damien's to subscribe to his channel, as well as for his book. And then there's a special free gift download single. Maybe that'll be coming up. He can tell us about it a little bit later. But yeah, you'll be able to have access to that. So do it. I want to read your book. I'm so excited to dive into it, because that's a big journey that you've gone through. So I'm just curious to ask you, because we've kind of tapped into a little bit of this sound and vibration and frequency thing, and as mentioned earlier, one of the things that I thought was so cool was the artist that you grew up with and you were connected with, and that was like your inspiration. And I read something, I don't know if it was an article about you when I was stalking you, something along the lines of I think you said something about, it was like 10 years you had stood in like the audience, looking up on stage, visualizing yourself like playing one day. Was that all prior to your accident? Was that afterwards? I read that and I was just like, I want to know more about that.
Well, if we're gonna, is the audio still all right here? Because we've 65-kilometer winds outside at the moment. Is it okay?
It's good on my end. If anybody in the comments below hears anything, let me know. Post in the comments.
I'm worried I'm going to blow away in a second. That's all. So yeah, I guess, look, since I was a little boy, I've always known that I've always just innately understood that intention affects the world we live in, that our mindset and our personality can manifest things in our life. I've just always known that. And I think a lot of kids do understand this stuff, and then it sort of gets like conditioned out of us as we go through the schooling system, and again, the authority figures that sort of just say, well, you're being silly, little Timmy, that's not possible. Well, now we've got the hail coming in. That's all right. So I've always known that if you mentally rehearse something, so if you visualize something in your life and you embrace it emotionally, so you can actually feel inside, like it's the world of imagination that we're talking about, and you can actually feel the emotion that's congruent with having that event in your future, and you just get out of the way, you just surrender it, then it can manifest in your life. My new music video, Half-Life, actually had a quote at the start on YouTube. We pulled it out because I'm trying to keep my motivational speaking and my music separate. I don't know if I can do that for much longer, but it just started with any dream you have inside yourself, if persisted in over time, will manifest in your life. You are that powerful. And that's what I've found to be true in my own life. I used to sit in the crowd looking up at, one of my musical heroes was Jeff Martin of the Tea Party. The Canadians out there know the Tea Party very well. And I got to meet Jeff 10 years ago, and I looked up and I actually spoke to Jeff after the show and said, look, can I do this? Can anyone write and share that part of their soul and do this dream that I've had since I was a little boy? And he just looked at me and said, yeah, of course you can, brother. Of course you can, brother. Like that. And he grabbed my guitar and he signed it, and he believed in me. But at that point in my journey, I still didn't believe in myself. So my consciousness hadn't expanded to the point where I could own it and back it. But yeah, so basically through visualizing that in the world of imagination and then staying true to that dream. And I'm stubborn like that. I'm not anything special. I don't like people putting me up on any pedestals at all. But one attribute I have is my tenacity. I'm really stubborn when it comes to a dream I have inside. If I don't understand something, or I can't play something on the guitar, or I don't understand something to do with physics or chemistry or anything like that, I will not stop until I get it and I can teach it. I can explain it back to a group of people, because I just like learning. Once you've had your brain damaged as severely as mine, you just want to learn. You just become this sponge, And so yeah, that's what happened with many of the mentors in my life. Like I manifested Jeff Martin, and we made a couple of records last year. Jeff would tell you himself that I manifested him. I manifested Dr. Joe Dispenza a couple of years ago, and got to know him really, really well, and spoke on stage with him at a number of events, and a couple of my other mentors as well. I've been lucky to have some of the greatest spiritual teachers and scientists share part of their knowledge with me to help me help other people. So yeah, that's the long way around. I guess it's been a blessing is how I'd say.
Yeah, thank you. That's so cool. I absolutely love that. You know, one of the things when I was little, my father always said to me was anything was possible. So I love that you shared that like stubbornness, because I'm kind of the same way. I would get design projects over the years and people like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. Yeah, just watch, I can do it. You know, and you just visualize it, and then suddenly you just make it happen. And when it comes from like a blank space, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what was it like? What was it like when this list came to fruition? Like, was it like a knowing? Was it like this inner, like, just, I knew this was going to happen? Or can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's like, oh, you mean with making these records with Jeff Martin?
Yeah, like when you finally got there and you knew it was going to happen and it was real, like, was it already like you were in it?
Well, okay, so.
Or did you like do some like yippee jumpy jacks?
No, I guess I believe that if you're going to teach, you've got to own it, and you've got to be the living example of what you teach. So I have to be an example for the people I've mentored and coached. So I apply everything that I teach in my own life. And truth be told, the day I arrived up in Byron Bay to meet Jeff, I'd flown up there with, a guitar and a suitcase and like a little songwriting book. And, I stopped at the bottom of the mountain and I was like, I'm out. I'm not going. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. Who do I think I am? And then I remembered that we had this tendency to put people up on pedestals, and everyone I've been able to manifest and speak with these huge superstars and get to know them and call them a friend, it's always when I've met them as an equal and just led by love and respect, and then they reciprocate and you realize, wow, we're all in this together. They're just normal people. So I paused at the bottom of the mountain. My shadow, or my pain body, tried to talk me out of it. It was like, turn around. Who do you think you are? You're useless. Blah, 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 blah. You've had a brain injury, And I just was aware of it. And this is what I teach people. The first step to change and transformation is awareness. So I could see the shadow. I could see that little voice in my head. I know what it is. It's just a set of neurons in my brain that I've fired together and myelinated. And I can either listen to it or not. And that's when we become the observer, when metacognition, when we can actually observe our own thoughts. That's mastery of self. When you understand how you predictably disempower yourself, and when you understand who you really are in your heart, and you let that guide you, and you go regardless. Like, I don't care. I'm all good. If people don't agree or you don't love me, I'm going to be me in this moment. And I've let that guide me since I came out of hospital. So, yeah, I got to work with some huge names in the Australian music industry and in the world. And we made music that, I guess, I'm going to be on my deathbed. I'm never going to regret that decision that I made to go and have Jeff Martin be my producer. And it was actually my partner, Fiona, before I left South Australia. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. This is not happening. And she just gave me a kick in the ass and reminded me that these dreams I've had inside myself, they've been there since I was a little boy, such a little boy, looking up at, people like, like the Beatles and like Slash from Guns N' Roses and, all of that when I was this little boy wanting to make music. And so she kicked me in the ass. And I went up there, we got it done. It's music that I'm incredibly proud of. I know Jeff Martin's incredibly proud of it, or else he wouldn't have put his name to it. And then, yeah, here we are on the other side. We're just starting to roll it all out and get it out there to the world, get it out into everyone's ears. And there's another album already written as well. So I'm trying to twist Jeff's arm, but the Tea Party have got their commitments with their new record. But I want to get back there to make this new record, because one of the songs is actually about this experience. It's exactly the question you just asked me. And it's called Ocean's Cry. And it's the whole journey of the dream and then the self-doubt, and then something that you've dropped that pebble into that pond of intention for your whole life, and you've kept going, and then you've given up on the dream, but you've come back and you've kept dropping those pebbles in for it to come and manifest in your life how that felt. And I've put it all into a song, and I've tried to encapsulate it in the chord structure, in the melody, etc. So yeah, it's the song I'm most excited about on the next album.
I'm excited to hear it too. I can't wait.
Yeah.
When does it come out? When does it come out? Everybody's going to want to know.
Okay, so Half-Life has just dropped, and then I've just had another single come out yesterday, and it was one that's been in the back pocket since 2019 when I recorded Footsteps. It's been up on Spotify for a while now. That did quite well. It made it to #2 on Triple J's Unearthed chart. So here in Australia, we've got the Triple J Unearthed charts. So that song was recorded at the same time, but stuck in the back pocket. So I thought, let's just get it out into the world so that I can now move forward with all the tracks I've done with Jeff. And in the next couple of weeks, the next new single will be coming out. And the plan is, like, I'll drop a few singles, get people absorbing that, listening to that, interacting with that, and then we'll drop an EP. And then we'll wait a little bit and then drop a few more singles and then drop an EP, because that's the music industry in 2021 with streaming services. As an artist, we put our heart, our soul, our life, our money on the line. I've self-funded all of this. And the old way, like in the 90s, early 2000s, you just drop an album, 13 tracks or whatever, you just drop an album. Independent artists, this is sort of how we have to operate with things like Spotify and Apple Music. So yeah, that's the plan. So you're going to be saturated with new music over the next couple of months. Yeah.
I think that deserves some snaps.
I'm feeling
it. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. We'll keep you guys posted on that coming out. So, Damien, I would love to ask you a little bit about your experience with the power of collective meditation. And I mean, and if you want to tie a little bit into your experience in bringing sound into that from, I'm sure you've had some experiences with this. So I'm just going to.
Yes. Okay. So, you gave me just a couple of questions this morning before we jumped on this call, and you said about, the collective impact of people meditating en masse. And I actually remembered something really cool that I saw a few years ago where I am now. So I am in the middle of Australia, in the middle of nowhere, in a log cabin. There's nothing here. Like, got to provide for myself and light the fire and go out and go fishing and all that sort of stuff. And there's a little like general store about 2 kilometers down the road, and they've got like a notice pin-up board there. And I remember it like it was yesterday. This is about 4 years ago. I walked up the stairs and I looked at the notice board, and it said, US military generals drop love bombs to save the world. And I'm like, what? And this article was from the 80s. It was from 1980 or 1982, 1983. And it was a cutout. And see, I'm completely anti-war. I'm anti-violence. I know that from a higher point of consciousness, we can resolve the issues that plague humanity without resorting to dropping bombs on our brothers and sisters. I got to meet Wayne Dyer just before he passed, and he looked at me and he said, the intelligence or the consciousness that beats your heart and regulates the systems of your body and grows your fingernails does so for everyone in this room, regardless of your sexual preference, the color of your skin, or your political views. And I was like, boom, like that's a truth bomb right there. So I'm anti-violence, anti-war. I want to see a sustainable world for the next generation. I believe in civil liberties, freedom of speech, and democracy. And so to see this cutout, US military generals, they're in the Pentagon, and this is real. They had done studies on it. They found that a collective intention of them going into meditation and sending that love to a part of the world that was war-stricken, or where violence and crime were, they statistically, and this has been proven again and again, you got to go digging for the studies, that intention does affect matter at a distance. Einstein's spooky action at a distance, it does work. Everything in this universe is energy. Everything is made up of atoms. It's as simple as that. This body of mine, this chain around my neck, the room I'm sitting in, the entire universe. And Albert Einstein said the sole governing agency of the particle, right, the atom, is the field. So when he's talking about the field, he's talking about the unified field of information, the quantum field, that, or some people could call it spirit, you could call it source, you could call it God, you call it whatever you want to. We know about it in here, right? You just weren't taught much about it at school. So this unified field of information gives life to matter. And there's a principle in quantum physics known as collapsing the wave function that says that the act of consciousness, okay, so our consciousness observing or measuring collapses that wave into a momentary phenomenon that we call a particle. So that's how consciousness is actually creating reality. And it sounds groovy with quantum physics, but I experienced it in my coma. In that space, in my coma, I had total recall. And the moment I remembered the identity, right, the image, the reflection in the mirror with the pain and the problems and the past and the credit cards, all of that, the Damien Horton, the moment I remembered me in form was the moment I snapped out, and I'm in intensive care, and my brother's on my left-hand side, my mum's on my right-hand side, and I'm 42 kilos, and I had no memory of crashing my car, and I'm in extreme pain, and I can't see, and you know, emotions are running high. I'm crying, everyone's crying. So I know this from personal experience, that consciousness creates reality. So if there's also a property in this universe known as entrainment, which is all about vibration. Okay, Nikola Tesla, if you want to understand this universe, think energy. Okay, you got to stop being a materialist because you can't see it and touch it. We're like, oh, it doesn't exist. Well, the greatest minds that have ever existed are telling us it's real, and have also said the textbooks need to be thrown in the bin. Throw them out. Einstein said it, because the educational model, the political model, and the medical model, it's broken down. But like, it's time for a new paradigm for people to really expand their consciousness and start understanding. We've got some big problems in the world right now, but I digress. So if you are feeling an emotion, that emotion is an electromagnetic field. Okay, emotion originates from Old French. Let's look at the etymology of the word. It means energy in motion, to get movement from. That's what your emotions actually are. Okay, we feel sorrow and grief in the heart, the polarity of love, so that when we lose someone, and our mother, our sister, our brother passes, a boyfriend, you know, our child gets a disease, whatever, so that we can feel, so that we can heal. You got to feel if you want to heal. So every emotion has a different electromagnetic signature. And the thing here is the California, the HeartMath Institute of California have scientifically shown and proven that when you go into love, when you feel the emotions connected to the true self or the human spirit, you put in whatever word you want there, your personal field, okay, the electromagnetic field of the heart expands to over 9.5 meters away from your body. In that moment, you are more energy and less physical, you're less matter. But when you go into blame and hatred and shame and guilt, it contracts. And it contracts because, as I said before, it takes energy to create chemistry. So when you go into fight or flight, okay, survival, this person's trying to harm me, I'm enraged with this Facebook post, I've got to lash out, you pull from the field to create the hormones of stress, because energy gives life to matter. That's what Einstein said. So to switch on those hormones of stress, you've got to pull from your field. And the HeartMath Institute of California found that it shrunk to just a centimeter or two away from your body. And you are now more matter, you're more physical and less the expression of the true self, love, compassion, gratitude. So this physical property, and I know it's a long way around, but I'm getting there. So this physical property in the universe is known as entrainment. And what it says is that basically coherent frequency, okay, that heightened vibration, the faster frequency of love consumes and entrains the dissonant lower vibration of hatred and war and violence and guilt and shame and blaming your brothers and blaming your sisters. So a good example of this is go on YouTube and look up entrainment metronomes. You get all these metronomes and you get them all ticking out of time. Right? It sounds horrific. It's dissonant. You're like, shut that door. Okay. No human hand touches the metronomes. 100 metronomes. Close the door and you come back sometime later and every single metronome is in perfect resonance, perfect coherence with one another, because there's a tendency towards order. There's a tendency towards love in this universe. It's all around us. You just don't see it on the news, because if you've just done a simple study of the news, it's 99% fear and 1% love. Where it should, at the very least, it should be 50-50 in a world of polarity, obviously. Okay, so love is the true self. Conscious love is what we really are. Love creates life. I mean, so the point is, en masse, when people come together in love and people come together for the greatest good of a community, of humanity, and you change the frequency in your body and you let that emotion guide you, regardless of other people maybe trying to tear you down or what they say, or he's all new age fluff. When you own your truth and you live by that and you get a group of people doing that, you can change the world through entrainment, because the slower dissonant frequency of judgment and hatred and blame and war and guilt and sexism, racism, all of this stuff, they're all attributes of our survival self. And the heart, only the heart knows. Okay, the heart is the union of polarity between our base animal survival self and our divinity, our connection to the universe, or whatever you want to call it there. So the heart is that union of polarity. So there's no doubt that physics proves that the intention and people en masse coming together to meditate can change the world and change the electromagnetic signature of the other people around us that are having a bad day. Okay, the other people that are still stuck in that survival state, we've got to bring them along with us, and you've got to be the example. You've got to be the living proof of the change you want to see in the world. And every day you've got to show up and be that person. And then you're contributing to the solution rather than magnifying the problem, because that's how the brain works. When you focus on problems, you get problems. You find they get worse. When you focus on solutions, then your life changes and everything changes.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all that, because you're absolutely right. And it kind of ties into also to or like what's come into my experience is what kind of questions are you asking yourself, and that has a lot of what's going to come into your vortex, because you can ask something that closes off possibility versus asking in a way that opens up possibility. And that awareness piece that you brought in earlier, it's all, I'm like not even coming up with my words. I'm drawing blanks now. I have like all these downloads coming in right now. This happens to me when my mind starts going, oh, wait, let's talk about this. Wait, let's talk about that. You said something there. So yeah. I
was doing that this morning as well. I'm like, all this stuff was downloading. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the flow and just sort of see whatever comes out while we're talking. But yeah, so it's like, she who says she can and she who says she can't are both correct. Like, that's the thing. You don't want to say it can't be done. You say, how can it be done? It's like me with my healing when I was told I would never smell ever again, and you've severed the olfactory bulb in your brain. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to keep going until I heal my own sense of smell. So it's like that's sort of what I mean about the news. It's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a stream of consciousness. And my near-death experience allowed me to see mainstream media from a lens up here, okay, rather than being in it. And it's 99% problem-focused, fear-based focus. And I went, hang on, like, I'm seeding my consciousness, my subconscious brain every day accepts, surrenders, and believes anything I'm being told through it. So it's now been 11 years without television for me personally. I just cut that off and started learning about what I want to seed my subconscious mind with, you know, things that were about expansion and about people being there for each other and compassion and creativity, you know, like that's ultimately that's why we're here. I didn't know this before my near-death experience. Okay, I just thought it's like whatever, like, you know, we evolved from a monkey, didn't we? And we're just physical beings living physical lives. It's the biggest lie we've ever been told. We are not physical beings living physical lives. You know, a random series of events that have made us evolve from a monkey, and there's no purpose in you even being in this universe. It's, for me, with what I've experienced, it's almost hilarious. It's almost comical. If it weren't the predominant mind view that most of the Western world has now adopted because of what we've been told. But I'll never stop and I'll never waver from what I've experienced, because you can't unknow something when it expands your consciousness. If you experience it and you know it, then it's a higher truth. So yeah, that's what I know. What I know is that when people come together and it's for the greatest good, we solve problems. When we focus on problems, either by ourselves or collectively, okay, in communities, countries, etc., in systems, in certain systems in the Western world, when you focus on problems, consciousness is collapsing the wave function. Let's not forget that. So you're just going to keep creating that world. Do you know what I mean? Like your mindset, your personality, your mindset, and your intention is collapsing the wave function. It's creating your world and your worldview around you. So you always want to be solutions focused. And that way you dig yourself out of the problem. You pull yourself out of the pain body and out of these base survival centers down here. And you move that energy, and inspiration is the movement of energy. That's, you're moving energy up the spine, and now you go, I'm going to change the world today. I'm going to write a new song today. I'm going to help underprivileged children in South Africa today. I'm like, whatever it is, you light up, you turn off the television and say, why am I doing this to myself? Because it's one lens and one stream of consciousness. And the issue I've seen here is in politics and in media, these people are devout materialists. There's almost none of the true self of the human spirit in that lens.
Well, and one of the things that I love that you've come back to is the sound, the vibration, you know, the music, because I'm sure anybody watching can attune to walking in, whether it's a concert or whether it's a celebration, a party, doesn't matter what it is. If you're by yourself and you turn on some music that ups your vibe, it can make the biggest difference in the world in shifting your energy. And collectively, when we come together and we bring in that sound, I don't know, I just think of times, whether it's, you know, people singing together, or whether they're in the vibration of sound together, it is so healing, and it shifts things so much, I mean, you can be in a room with, I'm sure, that's why I want to ask you about this, because I'm sure you've been on stage of thousands of people before that all of a sudden start singing in harmony when you're up there. And I know I've been that experience before, and it's just really, really cool how everybody, you know, you're talking about the metronomes, but, you know, as humans, we have that. Yeah, you know, we've got that same thing. We can all be in a space together, listening to something and singing together, and everybody starts moving together. And yeah, so touch on that a little bit. Because, you know, when you mentioned you got your mantra, I was like, you know, you know about this.
Totally. And it's like, because that frequency, that faster, higher vibration in trains, it pulls everyone in, but there's always a couple of hanger-oners, and we're not blaming on anyone. I've been that guy. I've been in that place for most of my life. But when you're still trapped in that limited chemistry of that lower vibration emotion, you want to walk away. You want to just leave the concert. Like, everyone's dancing and having so much fun. And right now, I just want my pain. And the reason we do that is our pain validates the way we're thinking. And, you know, it's like this redundant cycle of, I know this feeling's in the body. And so if you try and take it away, then it doesn't validate my state of being right now. So, but eventually, and you'll see on the metronome video on YouTube, if you look it up, all the little hanger-oners, the metronomes, like you've got 100 metronomes going like this, and there's just like one or two that are going against them. But in time, okay, so let's look at this as an analogy. If we're showing compassion and love for our brothers and sisters and the kids of today, right, some peace, love, and understanding, then we move forward collectively and we stop the division that we keep seeing. So talking about vibes and talking about frequency, it's a property of physics. It's a principle of this universe we live in. You can use certain scientific studies to measure scientifically emotions, different changes in the field, the personal field, and to heal. Say if you've got a sickness or you've hurt yourself, one of the most important things is to understand that there's a lowering of frequency in that part of your body. And my mentor, when I came out of intensive care, he's now passed on. He was a master. He was a Kundalini master. And he used to meditate for 2 hours every single morning without fail. He said to me, all disease is a lowering of frequency in the body. And I was like, wow, okay, I've got to get my head around that. But then when I walked up to Dr. Joe Dispenza at Melbourne University in 2015, he echoed word for word what my mentor had taught me 7 years before I met Joe. And that is, all disease is a lowering of frequency in the body. So when people say to me, how did you heal, Damien? And I talk about love. I talk about allowing myself to grieve and coming back to self-love and my willpower. If all the damaged and diseased tissue is at a lower frequency, then through entrainment, by changing our electromagnetic field, you can raise the frequency of the tissue in your body. And once you raise it back to that state of coherence, because disease is dissonant, it's an incoherence in the body, then when we entrain that frequency, because energy gives life to matter and every atom is spinning. It's, as I said, they're vortices of energy. Atoms come together to make cells. Cells come together to make the organs in your body, and putting all the organs together collectively make you, okay? So you can go back the other way with that flow chart and realize that our state of being, which is our mindset and the emotion in our body, when we get that hooked up and there's a congruency there and we're in that state of love, of expression, of gratitude, of saying thank you, of creativity, that raises the frequency of matter and can cause a healing. And that's the placebo effect. And the placebo effect, mind over matter, is well validated now with epigenetics, that we can change our genetic expression with our emotions and with our thought. It's the same thing. When the analogy there could be, you know, that group of people and they're all going to love, you've still got a couple of people that are in that negative framework. If we just hold space long enough and don't judge them, don't blame them, just hold that good vibration, eventually, like the metronomes, right, they're going to sort themselves out, and then everyone starts ticking to a new rhythm. And this is how we change the world, not by focusing on problems, it's by focusing on solutions, and to understand that we're all in this together, and accepting full responsibility for our life, past, present, and future, for exactly how it looks. That if it is to be, it's up to me, okay? If something's going to change, I've got to take responsibility for what's happened in my life and not put it on other people. Because what does that do? It lowers my frequency as I move into judgment and blame. Because that's what it is, it's blame. You're blaming someone else. You move into blame, you switch on the hormones of stress, fight or flight nervous system, and it pulls from the field to create the chemistry so that you can feel that emotion of blame, blame, and then you think more blameful thoughts, and then you put it on someone else, and then you can bring them down as well through entrainment by doing that. So it's, again, it's just, this is an incredible time in human history to be here. And we are literally seeing, like I said, those last couple of metronomes, but at the moment there's still millions and millions of those metronomes, all come into coherence. And then when we all change our frequency, I mean, God knows what we can do with this beautiful world that we live in when we stop arguing and bickering between one another and actually sharing and creating and expressing the true self, the human spirit. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's been an interesting shift, I think, this last year too, with, even just everybody having more time to sit with things and to be still and to be quiet. And I think a lot of people have made a lot of changes over this past 12 to 18 months in that way, because we haven't been as busy. I mean, I keep busy, but that's because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But in some ways I think it's given time to reflect and to really dive deep into like those aspects that you're speaking about, like the creativity and the dreaming and the visualizing again. Because when we're constantly going from one thing to the next thing, as it is here in the Western world so much, we miss that piece, we miss that space, that time to kind of dive in. And as we know, and I'm sure in order for us to really access those tools of consciousness and to be able to tap into our creativity and have that space, we need to get into the zone and that gap where we've got that ability to listen and to hear and to really tap back into the heart and
The stillness.
yeah,
because it's all go, 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 dopamine, dopamine, dopamine on top of some more dopamine, and then scroll, 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 instant, instant, instant. And we don't start finding our purpose. We don't start finding this space that I'm talking about until you unplug and trust yourself. Come back to what you know. I mean, it's like intuition. I mean, intuition means to be taught from within. If someone turns around and says to you, well, that's it, you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life, and you believe that and move into fear, then that will be your genetic destiny. And I know we don't have time in this show to talk about how the mind-body connection actually works from a scientific point of view, but it's the latest biology proves that it is possible, and that epigenetics is the mind-body connection. That's how we are turning on and turning off certain genetic expressions through the environment of the cell, basically. So your thoughts, choices, actions, beliefs, and emotional states, and how they impact that. So
yeah. And well, and and I know we touched on this briefly, and I know we don't have time today to get into it, but even using the meditation as a tool, science is showing that when we go into periods of stillness and there's silent retreats and things like that, that the length of the telomeres actually begins to grow again. And so that just is so interesting, and really it's just been, I think, the last 10 years in science that we really started to open up the door on this. So I think it's really cool. We're gonna have to have a whole other conversation on epigenetics, because that's a juicy one.
it's a juicy one. Yeah,
it's a juicy one. So okay, I have to ask you, if I could give you a magic wand and you could wave it and do anything you want with it, what would it be?
Okay, it's easy. I would give my experience of awakening the Kundalini to everyone in this world. I would give that universal consciousness rippling up the spine where I experienced oneness. I would give that to every single person here, so that we could start to understand that we are one mind, one consciousness, and the world would change instantly. And I know that to be true. So that's what I would do with that wand. The old me would say, well, I'm a famous rock star. So, go on tour and, play in front of 500,000 people. But no, I would allow, I said the moment I reached that space, I said, if everyone in the world experienced this coming home, this knowing, this infinite love, and everything that we've heard the mystics and in different religions and all of this stuff talking about, and Jesus Christ and all of this universal consciousness moving up the spine and the pineal gland opening, there's no word in the English language that can express. I tried in my book as best as I could, but it doesn't even come close. So that's what I would do with the wand. I would do that. And then I'd watch my brothers and my sisters all starting to come together, and old structures and old systems start to be replaced by things that are more sustainable. And we'd have more of a view about what's coming, and, where we're going to be 12 months from now and 5 years from now, etc. So that would be that's my magic wand.
I love it. I absolutely love it, because, one of my favorite quotes comes is, we don't inherit the land from our ancestors, we borrow it for our children. And so, looking at those things in sustainability and looking forward, I think today is so powerful. And, here at 1 Million Meditators, we really fell into that mantra of I love myself and the planet, because everything is so connected. As you say, we're all one consciousness. The energy that we put out onto the earth and everything that we do, it's all there's the it's all a wave, it's all together.
Well, I saw this interesting thing on YouTube, this guy talking, and he was saying he spent his life studying the paranormal at university level as a professor, paranormal and intention and spooky action at a distance, because obviously the field is a unified field of information. That's what the field is. So obviously we are one. That's very obvious. Einstein knew it. But what he said was, if you believe that you are that image that stares back at you in the mirror, if you believe that you're your job title, then you will suffer. Unfortunately, he said, I'm sorry, but you will live a life of attachment and you'll experience a lot of suffering. But he said he was now he was probably in his late 70s. He said he'd now, let go of that and realize the things that we're talking about here in this podcast, that there is a higher truth and an interconnection between all that exists in this universe. Although as a materialist, it seems that everything's separate. The forefathers of quantum physics, they knew that you can't separate one thing from another thing. It's not possible.
Damien, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your story and your experience. It's just been absolutely incredible. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much. It's truly been an honor. We're going to have to do this again, because I feel like we will have a whole other conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again, Damien. Bye, guys. We will be back again next week.